welcome back to the second part of our goal setting episode with Ben, Chris, and Cherie. Yay! Yeah, and this time with video because we unfortunately ran through some technical difficulties last time,
Yes.
and
Very good.
yeah, a lot of our episode wasn't recorded.
It's not an adventure without it, you know?
Yeah, you know, a little ups and downs, so we're kind of vibing.
Yeah.
So, last episode we left off with the purpose of making goals
Yep.
and why do you make goals. So I think Ben, you were speaking about it.
We can maybe just quickly run through just so
Oh,
that
yeah.
we remember what's
A
going on.
little refresher. So we talked a lot about like what our goals are for this year and was it next year? Oh, I think it was like our current goals and like whether it was like short term or long term, and how these goals can like how to achieve these goals or like making habits to achieve these goals as well. Yeah, that's probably about it.
So yeah, we'll go around.
So we're talking about
Why do
purpose.
you
Why do we have goals?
why do you think setting goals is important?
Oh, I know. Now I vaguely remember where I did talk about. I remember I did partially agree with Regine when she talked about having direction.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
How I talked about how having goals for me is like the initial base of it is very like instinctual. I don't consciously think about I want to do this. It just happens initially, and then once I realize what I want to do, I branch out from that and do more specific things. So I guess why I have a goal is to achieve specific things.
Wow.
I think.
That's pretty
I think. Oh,
Yeah, I like
let me
that.
double check myself. But
But it's just like, but how do you know, like, what are these specific things, though? Like, is it something that you feel, or what are
We're
these
kind of moving
specific
into the
things?
next bit, but yeah.
sorry, come again?
It's just like, you mentioned that you make goals to achieve specific things that you want in life, but how does these, like, specific things kind of come about?
That would usually branch off like my initial want or passion at the time. So, for example, if we just take Dodgeball, for example, I would just very naturally think, I want to get better at Dodgeball. So then, now I would be consciously thinking, how do I want to get better at Dodgeball? Do I want to get a better throw? Do I want to get better at blocking? Or do I get faster on court? And then at that point, I'll make those specific goals for myself. I want my throw to be able to hit a target 5 times out of 10, for example. So I guess that's where I know what goals I want to have.
I see. It's just like, yeah, I see where you come from. Just like a literal tree, and then you're just like having like little subsets that
And then
all conclude to one.
And then I guess, say from the throwing example, from that goal, I would then branch off as well. And there'll be even smaller goals for that and how I would go. And there would be even smaller goals for that I would aim to achieve to help me achieve the throwing goal.
Yeah.
So for example, if I need to work on a particular muscle group so it's more consistent, if I would need to throw or train X amount of times a week, if I would need to watch a recording of myself and fix anything, that sort of thing.
I see. It kind of reminds me of like, I don't know. Have you seen those like trees where it's just like one thing and splits off into two
Yeah.
and splits off?
Yeah, that's literally
That's
the
a tree diagram.
It's just a tree diagram.
Yeah.
It is
It's a
tree
tree diagram.
Yeah. How about you, Chris? Like, why do you think goals are important to you?
I think similar to what was mentioned at the start, which is, I guess, setting a direction for yourself to move in. I like to see goals as more of a tool to help you with that direction. I think as we touched on briefly in the previous session, kind of like just because you didn't meet a goal, for example, doesn't mean that you haven't made any progress. And I think kind of what Ben has also discussed just then, like you should have kind of that ultimate goal, and then all these like sub goals that you need to, just like smaller steps you need to take to get up to whatever that ultimate goal is that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that sense, goals are more just a tool to sort of give you that guidance, give you that direction.
Okay.
And then ultimately, like, I think for a lot of these things, at least kind of my idea around it is that it's more about setting up an identity about yourself. So like, for example, your gym one, which also you did sort of touch on in the first session, is like, just because you couldn't lift X kilograms or whatever, like doesn't mean that you're failing at what you set out to achieve. And then also just like kind of setting up that identity that you are just someone that goes to the gym. And then it might be to, you know, be fitter or blah, 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 lift this weight. And I guess by setting up that identity, those sort of goals should sort of just kind of eventuate. And obviously, you still need to kind of like make sure you're going in the right direction. Like you could be a gym goer and say you want to lift heavy, but you go to the gym and go on a treadmill. Obviously, you're going in the wrong direction with that identity. But the identity is kind of the core, fundamental portion, I guess, of the whole goal setting thing. And then the goals just help you kind of align to, where you want to go.
I see. So in the sense that you're stating like goals are kind of like not vague, but more of a general guide for you, would you say?
I just think that they are more like you should really just use them like tools. Like it's like a hammer. Like if you start like hitting nails down, and then with this first hammer, the head falls off. Do you just like kind of stop building your house?
No.
Yeah. So like you.
Kind of
you
hammer.
yeah, you get another hammer, right? Which is essentially just you get another goal. You might need to, you know, recalibrate it, whatever, in the goal sense, and you just keep going. My ultimate goal, I guess, in this other analogy I'm using, is to build a house. I'm not going to just stop because one of my tools is broken.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I think like
Analogy. I like that analogy.
yeah, that analogy is really good. So the ultimate goal is the house, but so the hammer is the tool that builds the house.
And which is kind of how I think people should sort of perceive goals. Like, they are a tool, they kind of help you to achieve the ultimate, whatever your ultimate end goal is.
Okay. Yeah, and what about you, Cherie?
I probably think along the same lines as Ben and Chris, in that it's good to have something overarching that lets you feel like you're moving forward. Because I think for a lot of like big scale goals, you're not always going to be able to move in a linear fashion, and the way we think of goals is always very linear. Like, I'm going to jump, 20 centimeters and then 25 and then 30, but it's not always possible to move that way, like towards bigger goals. Like to get better in dodgeball, there isn't that sort of linear process. You kind of go side to side, but having like that overarching goal of maybe like making the Oz team or like making VDL 1 or whatever it is, allows you to feel like you're still within a space where you're working towards something and moving forward, even though you might be moving side to side, and as you go to work on your throw, you might lose some of your catching ability.
Yes,
like,
dodging side to side is important.
Yes. Or like when you're working on dodging and then maybe your throwing is not as accurate for a little bit, to not feel so defeated in those moments when it doesn't feel like you're making linear progress on certain things. And I guess that's how I really approached my career, is that, it's not always possible to go from like a legal assistant to like a paralegal to whatever the other roles and progression you could have. But maybe I'll go do something else. Maybe I'll try consulting, or I'll try doing like leadership in a sporting context. And I'm still building those skills that I need for my career ultimately, but I'm not forcing myself to try to move in a linear way, because there's only so much you can do trying to, just move up
Like step
certain
by step.
ranks. Yeah, exactly. You can go try different things, and that's what I really did during university is, try lots of different things, try mentoring, try playing sport at this level, taekwondo, different things that I knew were still working towards what I wanted to do, but I wasn't trying to move up all the time. I was kind of moving sideways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's just more of like learning skills through different like smaller goals. That's that's what you mean. And then kind of having an arcing goal where you feel like it's not really like moving forward towards it, but it's just like you're just gathering like little you know how for like Mallie Olympics we have like little stickers? Yeah, I see in a way like we get like little stickers and we kind of add them up over time, You can sometimes you don't get stickers, but sometimes you do, and like it slowly builds on who you are as a person and your abilities to reach your goals.
I think it's more forgiving. I think one of the things that can make like goal setting and reaching your goals really difficult is when they are super linear. Like sometimes you just plateau, or sometimes you find it hard to like push through that next barrier, and having a bigger goal that allows you to sort of pivot to something else is more forgiving on you, and then it allows you to still focus on your goal because you're not kind of distressed by the fact that you're not reaching your goals or not making progress, because there is that room for you to do something else.
That's true. I think a lot of us like really struggle with like plateauing, and we feel like, oh, we're not doing enough to like reach our goals, and it's a very, very common struggle among especially young adults, where we think that we're not where we want to be. And I just want to hear your thoughts about like, what do you guys think about plateauing and feeling like you're stagnant in a sense?
I'll take this one. This.
You go, and then I can add on, and then I do want to come back to the kind of original basis of this with Cherie.
So, I think this is something that Blue Mallie's talked about a little bit, in the fact that there's an analogy that was used where if you heat up an ice cube 1 degree like every minute or so, and throughout like several minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, it's still an ice cube. And then only when you reach like say the 25th minute does it actually melt. That sort of thinking can also be applied to some goals as well, in the fact that that steady progress that you make, even though it doesn't immediately show results, the fact that you're making those, I guess,
like baby steps.
Yeah, making those baby steps towards the goals, even though they aren't showing immediate progress, like the fruits of your labor will show eventually. It's just making sure that, one, the process is like, you have checked the process and it does work, and two, you trust the process.
Yeah, you just really gotta trust the process and put in consistent effort. I think I have a really good analogy for this that was told to me like ages ago when I used to be in high school. So you know how big buildings are built, right? People work on the foundation of the building for so long, and you can't see anything being built. You're just like, oh yeah, it's just under construction for like ages now. But then once the foundations are built, after like maybe a year, 2 years, you can see the building just like skyrockets and just like starts building up like really quickly once they lay down like their like basis of it.
Yeah, literally called foundations.
Yeah. So I think this applies to like us as well. Like a lot of us, we spend a lot of time working on like our skills, like even with Dodgeball, like really technical stuff. But we don't really see progress, or like we don't see the buildings being built. In a sense, it's like sometimes not as visible, and we feel stagnant. But then, like once we hit a certain point, we're just like, oh yeah, I think I'm throwing faster. I think I'm dodging better.
I thought you were totally going somewhere
Yes.
else.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, another issue that we are sort of kind of seeing in the broader community, which is like, you also, I guess, can't expect to build that tall building until the foundations are there.
That's true.
So what I guess, to continue with this analogy, what sort of happens is people start trying to build their first, second, third floor, and then they hit the fourth floor, and like that fourth floor kind of, it just like the whole thing topples over, and then they have to try to build up again, because they're missing the foundation. And I think so there's a bit of, that's kind of like more like a knowledge aspect in instead of like a goal setting aspect. But just generally, like, it is, I guess, even with the goal setting, important that you are kind of conscious with where you're pointing at to, improve. Like, no point trying to build upwards if you haven't got the foundation yet. Otherwise, it's just going to fall over. You're going to try to go up again. And then that's where people get frustrated, and then they're just like, well, I don't know. They might come to like different conclusions. Maybe this is not for me. How come this guy who hasn't been improving for ages is suddenly better than me? Or lots of other, like
little thoughts that come.
Yeah, lots of conclusions that anyone can come to, but sort of like kind of missing the point that like you need that base before you build up.
That's true.
I thought that's where you're going with that one.
Yeah, kind of. I try to like shift it, but like it's similar in a sense.
Yeah. Well, where did that come from?
I think it was being stagnant about goals.
I don't know. It was with your ice analogy. Yeah. So I guess just to tack onto what Ben said is, it really is about finding a system that works and just trusting it, and even going as far as your goals should not actually be about an outcome, but about the system. For example, just simply setting a goal of going to the gym 3 times a week rather than saying, I want to lift X. Because then if you do plateau, right, which is not really a plateau, is kind of the conclusion we're drawing here. But if you do if you get stuck at, 50 kilos or whatever it is for whatever movement, you don't just be like, okay, shit, this is not working, I'm going to try to do something else, which is a very common thing, which is where we also touched on it, like people are like, oh, I can't get it any faster, I'm going to try doing curve throw, or anyway, they try to go do something else, and then pretty much the exact same thing is going to happen, right? Because it kind of happens for everything, unless you're like very lucky or blessed or whatever. But even then, even at the top of the sport, you get to like a point where like you just feel like there's nothing to do, but really there's still plenty to do. But and then just trusting in that process, and I guess going back to goal setting, like having goals based on the system rather than the outcome of the system. You can still have those auxiliary, like, okay, I want to be able to lift blah blah blah, so that when you do really hit it, like you get a really nice spike of achievement. And I think that's fine, but having the underlying, again, foundational goal of just simply, I'm going to be here every week, no matter what happens, and trusting that will take you, like, kind of carry you on your journey upwards.
So in a sense, you're just not setting like very finite goals, or like very like, oh, this amount.
No.
Okay.
It shouldn't even be about the amount.
It's just more of like a system or something.
Okay, I'm going to try to get you to understand this.
I'm having like a little bit of issues understanding like goals about a system instead of like finite goals, because I grew up like having like really finite goals. It's like, oh, I gotta get A+ on this exam, I gotta do this, and there's always an outcome.
So I do agree, goals should be finite. Otherwise, how do you know whether or not you've achieved it? Actually, no, sorry. You need both types of goals. You need goals that are just kind of like way out, and then you need like kind of definitive goals for now,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise there is also that aspect of like, am I moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to kind of what I said before, using goals as this tool as kind of like a compass needle.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't set like, oh, I want to be lifting, 20, you never know if you're moving forward. Like you could just kind of like scrub off the weights. Actually, no. It is sort of not necessary, but anyway, no. Point being is that the weight itself doesn't matter in this case if we're doing the gym.
Okay, yeah. It's
So
just-
how could you set up? What is the system you would need to improve how much you can carry? Or like what would you need to do?
probably just like carry stuff, like not carry, but like start from something small and then slowly build it up at the gym.
Sure, that's kind of the macro, but just simply like if you wanted to be able to lift heavier, what would you need to do? Or anyone can
Go
help, right, 'cause-
consistently.
I was gonna say like how like do like put your muscles under more strain so they grow bigger.
Yeah, okay, maybe not that technical, but just
Okay.
like yes, you
Specifically.
you just need to go to the gym,
Yeah.
right? Essentially, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So then now so now you know that if your goal is to lift heavier, what do you need to do? We
Go
just
to
did
the
it.
gym.
Yeah, go to the gym.
And obviously lift weights. And
Yeah.
again, kind of going back to the other thing, like
Treadmill.
not just going on the treadmill, like, and not that the treadmill doesn't have its place, but like if this is your goal, the treadmill is not going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So then, if you know that as long as you just go to the gym, lift some weights, you're going to get stronger, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty much proven. What goal could you set that will guarantee that you will be lifting more in the future?
Good. I would say go to the gym again, but
Yep.
Go to the gym, be consistent, do it like 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's it. Like simply, so then that's about the system. Did you say anything about how much you're going to lift?
No. I
No, exactly.
didn't. Yeah.
So, and then obviously, okay, you can't expect if you're just going to lift like 10 kilos every single time that. So obviously there is that aspect of like you need to progressively load up and blah blah blah. But I guess the idea being is simply you just need to set the goal of I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lift as much as I can. So then, and this is what I was about to say before, like if you kind of like rubbed off the weights,
Mm-hmm.
the numbers on the weights, like you don't need to know how much it is, just that you're kind of at your, you're training properly,
Mm-hmm.
so you're kind of pushing yourself. Eventually, you just be putting more and more on. And you don't even need to know how much that is, right? And you're stronger,
That's true.
right? I don't need to know that was 20 kilos, and then the next one was 30, and the next one
Yeah, you
was
don't need to know
35.
like the actual number,
exactly.
but you just know like you're doing something that will make you even stronger,
Yes.
or like it's a process.
And yeah, so
Okay,
that's kind of
okay.
like that's kind of the trusting in the process portion. Now, which is where I also there's a little caveat, which is like those numbers do help though. Like if you do see like, 1 week you're lifting 30 and the next you're on 35, you do get that kind of nice progression, or like at least knowledge that you are progressing.
Mm-hmm. I think like there's another example of this as well that I saw online. You know how when people are trying to lose weight, right? They always look at numbers on the scale, but muscle weighs more than fat in general. So like even though like you're on a scale and you increase in weight, well, there's a higher number and people feel really disappointed by it, but they don't know like their waist is getting smaller or like their clothes are like a little bit bigger on them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much a good example. Like it's like if you want to be healthier, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes back to like kind of you should be setting what identity you want, not kind of like
Yeah.
I want to be 60 kilos or whatever. Like you should just like I want to be a healthy person, and yeah, like if you do start developing muscle, like you might actually gain weight,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Yeah, I think
It's like, is that a bad thing just because the numbers are going up?
I think
Not
yeah.
really, not necessarily.
Yeah, I think a lot of people with like goals, they're always like, they have very, very specific, or I want to be 50 kilos or 60 kilos, that sort of thing. But it's not whether I want to be healthier, I want to be, or looks slimmer or something. Yeah, and that could contribute to like, to a lot of factors. That's not just the weight itself or like the numbers itself.
Yeah, but yeah, as I kind of been
Matters.
saying this whole time, like, it's not that those sort of goals don't have their place as well. Like, if you're 200 kilos and you set out you want to be 100, like, seeing that's kind of the end goal though, right? Like, even the house, like, it's very tangible. Like, setting out that that kind of ultimate place you want to be at, I think is very good, because then you know that that's where you want to be. But then, yeah, to overcome plateauing and all this stuff, it is really about the trust in the system.
Fair enough. Well, Ben,
Well-
Cherie, do you guys have any comments?
Or thoughts?
Thoughts?
We can like kind of continue
Don't remember
bouncing.
how we got here, so
Trusting the system. You trusting Chris.
I don't really. Nah, I don't really see many thoughts. I already said my piece.
I do have something I want to cycle back to then,
Mm.
since we're coming back,
Mm.
which is like, I want to, I guess, re-ask you, why do you think goals are important? Because I feel like you talked about like kind of how progress isn't linear, but like, why is goal setting important then to you?
I mean, well, basically what I said is, by having that overarching goal, it allows you to set smaller goals, and they're not necessarily linear. They can be sort of essentially side by side, but you're still progressing forward towards something. And I think goal setting is important because it gives you that sense of you're doing what?
I'm hungry.
It gives you a sense that you're doing something. I think something that can be really discouraging is having those moments where you're sitting there being like, what am I doing? Where am I going?
Okay. So for you, it's that sense of achieving something?
It's a sense of achieving something, but also not feeling like you have to achieve the same thing as last time, but better. So I guess when I first thought about this, it was really from more about my studies and my career. But in Dodgeball, for example, like for me, I had goals around my throwing for this year, but at the moment, my arm is probably not the healthiest that it has been, and a lot of the focus has just been on building back, the strength in some of those smaller muscles to allow me just to throw healthily for now. So then, instead of just sitting there being like, well, my life is over now, like the goal that I had is not something I can really work towards in the way that I wanted to, what's the point of playing dodgeball? I've just pivoted to focusing on something else while still doing my shoulder things. And then, when I'm ready to get back to my shoulder goal, I can do that, but I still feel like I'm progressing towards just being a better player.
I like how you say like there's your goals that you make is like, I want to get better at throwing, but it's more a general guide as well. So you don't feel discouraged when you don't like hit the goals. So for example, like Chris said, not his goal, but like having goals in the system and going through with the system. So if you don't come out, or if you don't have an outcome that is like definitive in a sense, definitive outcome goals is like good, but it doesn't make you feel as discouraged as if you don't hit it at all.
And I mean, I think it's important not to just be like, well, like my throw's not getting any faster, I'm just going to give up on that and do something else. But I think it's important to recognize when you should focus on something else. So for example, like when we were in lockdown, I was getting into like doing more pull-ups and doing more of those things, but right now most days I probably can't do pull-ups without really hurting my shoulder. And for me, if that was all that I was thinking about and just being like, okay, I'm going to spend all that time on shoulder rehab now, for me personally, I think I'd probably feel quite lost in it all. But I think having something alongside that you can focus on. So for example, at the moment I've been trying to just position myself better to take some more catches and try to take catches during social league games.
I mean, you've been taking quite a number of
I've taken a
catches.
couple of big ones, which have been very encouraging, but just trying to see if I can get them if I try, because normally I don't try for them. Just because I'm like, well, if I can try to survive, like, why don't I do that? But I realise I'm never going to build those catching skills if I don't just try to take them. So I've been doing that a bit more and trying to get my head a bit more screwed on when it comes to dodging. I think for me, if I stop thinking about it, I find it really easy just to kind of like do random things on court when it comes to dodging. So just being a little bit more mindful, like looking at the ball and thinking like, where should I actually move? And having that to sort of think about just gives me a sense that I'm still moving forward, even though I've probably taken a couple of steps back with my arm. And it's not that I've given up on the throwing stuff, it's just that for now...
Just you're focusing on other things so that you don't tunnel vision.
Yeah, and it gives me, like, it keeps me in a good headspace for, like, working towards something. Otherwise, I think I'd just probably be quite demotivated and distressed by it all. Yeah.
Chris, would you like to say something? Sounds like you're really deep in thought there.
He's analysing what I'm saying.
He's processing the facts.
Yeah, well, firstly, I just think it's... Yeah, we've sort of talked about, like how to set up goals. But anyway, I sort of, like, I guess disagree with the sentiment of, like, this isn't working for now, I'm going to go look at something else. In some aspects, like... Yes, you need to like kind of rest and stuff, but that is still ultimately kind of in line with your goal of wanting to throw better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'm just saying that like there's still room there for then to focus maybe some of that extra energy that you have left over from not, for example, like finding time to do pull-ups and whatever, to do something else. Or when you're on court instead of, like when you're on court instead of thinking like, I'm just going to piff the ball as hard as I possibly can, or like whatever it is. Maybe I throw a bit lighter, but then take that extra like mental energy when I'm running back to think about, hey, can I like find a catch, or can I actually get out of the way and not die this time?
I have two lines of thought right now, and so I guess firstly, like that's still kind of, and I guess like not that it's bad discussion, but I still feel like that's kind of talking about like how you sort of laid out your goals. And I would be kind of interested more in like why you think like the goal, like underlying like it's important, because like saying that it gives me something else to focus on is just like, so you always set goals to focus on something new, if that makes sense. And then specifically on this one, I forgot what I was thinking, because I was just holding it in my head and I've dropped it.
Two trains like going on at the same time.
Specifically in this one, it sounds like since Cherie found that it's very hard for her to walk, I guess, as best as she could towards like a throwing goal because her shoulder's busted. It's like, okay, so while I take this time to recuperate and then make bigger strides towards this goal, I will instead make strides towards another goal. Is what it sounds like from my point of view.
Like, for example, are you doing shoulder rehab? Or do you think you should be doing shoulder rehab?
But I am doing shoulder rehab.
I didn't say you're not.
But I said that I was doing shoulder rehab.
Okay.
I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, I must have missed it too. Are you sure? You said you were kind of dodging doing like, you know, heavy like pull-ups and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I'm not doing pull-ups, but I'm like doing band work, and I've progressed along like the strength of the band, and I'm doing more reps, and I
Okay.
find that in my experience, like that helps me build shoulder stability pretty quickly. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean,
But
must
in
have
the-
missed you mentioning that.
Yeah. In the meantime, you know, no pull-ups for me, but
But
you know,
then
do
like,
something else.
because then I feel like the way you presented it is kind of like, I'm gonna let this let this go, and like, okay, here's what I can do, because right now I can't do anything here, which I think is kind of like is just something I wouldn't
Sounds-
want to push and like encourage.
Which
I
isn't
feel
what you're doing.
I don't think that's what I said at all.
Yeah, I
but-
feel like I kind of get where Cherie's coming from. It's just your goal is still there, but you're taking a break in sense. It's like, you know, when you lose something in the house.
See,
and then you go,
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I think you adjust, like you just adjust, like how much time you're spending on your goals. Like so for me, for throwing now, like maybe it's gone from 50% of my dodgeball training, personal development time, to maybe it's down to like 20, and that's just for shoulder rehab for now. And I'm using that 30% to do something else. I'm not giving up on this goal. I'm still working towards it, but I just know if I put all my eggs in that one basket, I'm gonna feel like shit. My shoulder's gonna feel real bad if I push it too hard, and I'm not gonna like get anywhere else with anything.
yeah.
And it came from the idea that, like, for me, working towards my career, you know, for a while, you know, I was doing legal assistant work, I was a paralegal, and then you find that you kind of gain everything you have to gain there, or you start to not really vibe with it as much. And so you take out a little bit of time from that kind of very like legal experience that you can put on your resume towards your career, and maybe you carve some of that time out to do something else. So maybe you like playing dodgeball, or doing taekwondo and taking on leadership roles, or doing some volunteering. And you just kind of, when you start to feel like you're not getting what you want out of what it is you're doing anymore, you've gotten everything out that you wanted to, you know, there's room to do something else, and you don't feel like you're failing. You're still moving forward, even though you're not necessarily, you know, getting promoted in that role.
It's not like a direct kind of thing, but more of an indirect way of still achieving your goals, but also not feeling so shit about yourself. Because sometimes tunnel vision is just like a real thing, and you think, oh, I want to get from A to B, like as quickly as possible. But like as you say, it's not linear. It's not A just to B, and you could spread yourself out a little bit more to like come back in the future.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, not that I disagree with that at all. Anyway, yeah. But then I guess I still would be interested to clarify like what your, I guess like what you think the main purposes of like setting those goals are, whether it be, okay, I want to work on my catching.
I mean, I think
Is it mostly just for that sense of achievement? I don't
sense
know.
of achievement and just not feeling so overwhelmed. I think when it comes to dodgeball, like there's so many things that you can work on, and I think if you set a goal or a focus, it gives you, for me, it gives me the courage to start. Because without that, you're just kind of like drowning in an ocean of things that you're bad at and could get better at. But giving yourself a focus gives me the courage to start. And then like from there, like obviously you can build more concrete goals about, you know, how many times you're going to training to do, or how many times you're training specific things, or like how many times you do like very close quarter catching, and how many times you do whatever coordination things. But for me, like the most valuable part of setting a goal is to give me that sense of focus in dodgeball, at least.
Which I think is great. It's something we haven't touched on, which is setting goals. Also, like at least like properly setting goals gives you, I guess, that targeted focus, or that target to be like, okay, if I can just do this one, and then do that one. So essentially the same thing as the stars. I can eventually build up to have a huge score.
Yeah,
at
a
the end.
little skill ball or something.
Whatever you want. right? You can have any container. It could just be like a, you know,
Nice.
adding flowers to a bouquet.
Frisker to make me one of those boards for myself.
Actually could. I actually did the design for the boards, but like we just gotta have Frisker. Like every time you do something good, just have her to like stick the stars on.
I think you go, Regine. You got a side hustle idea. You make little boards for everyone in the Mallie team.
That's
Throwing,
like
Throwing,
dodging,
catching.
blocking. It's like,
Using
give me a
my brain.
sticker.
Oh my gosh.
But that is actually that is a goals tactic, which is like
Getting stickers.
Stickers? Frisker?
either stickers or like you get like a calendar, or just something visual, and what you want is to like just amass like
Yeah. I think a lot of like
That's
teachers
how-
do use it in
That's how like primary school works,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
You just get
that's
stickers,
kind of
yeah.
like it's part of it. It's just like
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's actually like
Is this-
relatable to
Same thing how like points cards works when they give you stamps at like, I don't know, coffee shops or whatnot. These like every 10 coffees you get like a free coffee. Stamp, 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 stamp.
Yeah.
I want to get more stamps. Stamp, 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 stamp.
yeah, well, and part of it is that visual part, which is like, oh, I'm like 3 away, like
but I feel like with dodgeball as well, it's pretty hard to define when you get the star as well.
it can just be when you go to
Every
the
time
gym.
you go to training, you get 1 star. When you get 10, you get a one-on-one session with Chris or Ben, or Matt or
Ooh.
Nick. Ooh.
There's a promotion idea. Should do it.
People specifically going out of their way to not get
Yeah, I don't even really know what I want to
we start losing attendance.
the most intimidating route.
You want this or what?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I've got a lot of pit purple on me right now. You can drag more of the blue across if you want.
Yeah, Cherie started this episode not
Wanting a
not
blanket.
wanting.
The blanket is
Not wanting
pretty
in.
comfortable.
I'm slowly transitioning into sleep mode.
Yeah. Not gonna lie,
So-
I did yawn before, but I do not want to.
Okay,
let this
It
go.
is very. The
No,
couch
I'm a
is very
bit warm
comfy.
though. Like
What?
if you can not cover me. Okay, my feet are cold.
Let's
but
both
I'm
put our
warm.
feet on bed.
Cherie, don't make my foot go in your face. Okay? It will happen.
All right. So now that we talked about why goals are important to us and like in a sense what kind of goals, or slightly touched on what kind of goals there are, do you guys have a process, or like how would you go about like reaching these goals? Like what are the small little things that you do?
I think we should start with how do you guys set your goals?
Yeah.
Which we touched on a bit, maybe a bit more in depth, and then we can go.
Wait, say how we set our goals?
Yeah, how do you pick what to make a goal?
Yeah, what,
Oh
what
god.
how do you pick what is important?
Which you sort of touched on in
Yeah.
your personal experience, but then also, what do you think? How do you think it's ideal way as well? I think is something we could kind of talk about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what did I say again? Like, I have my main thing and I pick small things. I guess what part I was confused was like, how do I pick those smaller things?
Mm-hmm.
I think that part of it also comes actually from like, one, talking to other people, getting their opinions on
Yeah.
those small things.
That's true.
Two is like researching, which is aids, but you have to do it sometimes. What was the other thing again? What was the other question?
I mean, we
So
we could
how-
then go
So how you pick your small goals and how
to go about achieving goals.
how do you go
I
about
guess.
achieving those goals?
But which is like we've kind of touched on it already.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
bits here and
Your
there.
goals should already be the how essentially, or at least part of your
Yeah.
goal set should be literally like just how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the gym.
I'm gonna throw 20 minutes every 3 days. Or 2 days. Every day.
It's more of like a system. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the system.
Let's go
idea.
back to the whole system idea.
The system idea.
So what was the question again?
Okay. Well, how do you pick goals and
How do you pick goals?
How do you go about like achieving these goals?
yeah?
How do you pick goals? I
Yeah,
pick goals.
how do you know whether, well, in dodgeball context, how do you know whether it's dodging, catching, or throwing?
Oh. Actually, I do remember. I did have this thought process once. I was like, I kept thinking, how am I dying on court? Like, I don't think about it immediately after every time I die, but usually like, at the end of a game, how often did I die trying to dodge? How often did I die trying to block? And then sort of from there, do I try to like formulate some sort of direction with my improvement, I guess. And then like same thing I guess is like, oh, how much use was I to my team on court in terms of hitting people? Did I get the opponent to react to my ball? Stuff like that. And if like any of those I felt were lacking, it's like, okay, time to strive towards this. I guess dodgeball specific, that's how I start to formulate my goals.
So it's just like, in a sense, like experience or
Partly experience. So it's partly just like, in a game sense, where am I lacking?
Yeah, you did mention in the previous episode that after you die, you always like think about where was I on court.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where was I on court, and like what can I do to like improve my position when I die?
Yeah, because I found more often than not, I usually die in the middle of the court just because either I stay up too long or I'm just not aware of the situation behind me as much, and I just forget to retreat back. So I realized like, that's not good. So part of it is also, I think I'm this, like, I do find myself sometimes being lazy on court, and I find myself flat-footed, and I just don't go back.
Yeah.
And I reflect on that afterwards, like, damn, like there was no reason why I was up there. But other than that, I don't reflect too much at that time. It's just usually, generally speaking, it's just positioning on court. Just think, okay, was I just lazy, or was it something good they did? And that's basically it.
Almost like a plan. So really, like just zooming in on where you were at.
Yes.
How about you, Chris?
I'm not. Well, this discussion has brought up a few ideas. I'm not sure whether we talked about it off or on.
Yeah, our talks kind of like mingled through already, whether it was on.
But
the
I think I did. I think it was during the recording, but it was kind of like, actually maybe not.
What was it
I think
about?
maybe not.
Just say it.
Do you also? It wasn't. Do you think about what you do well as well?
It was on the podcast.
It was? Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because I talked about
highlight
a highlight
reel.
reel.
Oh,
Just
true.
me catching Ashley Chen over and over again in my head.
Yeah.
No, but I asked Ben specifically. Does he think?
Yeah. And
What
then
I
I was
do.
like, you're crazy.
I think, yeah, because you asked me, and then we talked about you, and
Okay.
then we talked to Cherie.
Yeah.
I think we said yes, like, we generally don't.
Sorry.
Like
It's
self.
fine, it's fine, it's
It
fine.
wasn't.
You don't
I
worry
talked
about
about
it.
self-reflection,
Yeah.
and yeah, we were just like talking about what
But
we
anyway.
reflect.
It leads to, I guess, a more broader idea, which is, I feel like potentially if you, I guess, kind of section off maybe like blocks of time or until you hit a certain goal, whatever, where you focus on certain attributes, say like throwing, maybe it's a bit easier, and then your post game analysis should be more about just that and kind of like focusing down on that. Sort of what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
In the previous section, where like it might be a good idea, and I feel like this is sort of what I personally do as well. So obviously biased, and not, this is just kind of it might not necessarily work, but it could be a good idea to be like, yes, this half a year I'm working on my throw. How was my throwing? Was it up to what I wanted? Am I hitting the ones I want to hit? And I guess just having that like kind of positive and negative about this certain thing, and then you can go away and be like, okay, I'm doing this well. Let's just like maintain that. This is not happening as well, and then just kind of like really sharpening up one aspect of your game first before moving on, rather than just kind of like
Yeah, it's a really logical
because
aspect in thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
One
just being logic.
problem I see you running into is each week you go away with a different goal,
Yeah.
which is going back to it, kind of this systematic thing where like you need to be doing the same thing kind of in and out to actually eventually get some sort of progress.
Because I guess, yeah, the way that I do currently think about it is, if I just look at, okay, what's lacking, I'm bound to just jump from thing to thing.
Yes.
It's very unlikely well, it just depends on the person, but for me, it's very unlikely I'll stick to one thing that's consistently like the bad thing of my game.
Yeah, like say one time it's just like, you're not moving side to side. The next time, it's in your forefront of your mind, and the next game you play, you're going side to side. It suddenly becomes something you don't think about.
Yeah.
And then, like, it peaked at it, and then and like maybe on average, you're like kind of.
I was gonna say because potentially what my sort of mindset towards it then becomes one more of like maintenance rather than improvement, because anything that's like say like stat levels are like roughly like even, right?
Yeah.
Something falls behind, I'm working to like, okay, push it back up. Anything falls behind, push it back up. Anything, push
It's
it
like
back up, push
a
it
little
back up.
balance.
So I'm trying to like
Yeah.
make sure nothing falls below a certain level, which is sort of like maintenance, and then eventually over time, that pushing up might just push up a bit more, an improvement, which is what you were talking about. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, right now it's not like that, but that's also because we're just not playing any games. I think definitely when we were playing more, like VDL for example, I was jumping a lot more. I was not focused on one thing.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to just like jump around
Yeah.
because one thing goes wrong and you're like, oh, I want to work on that, and then you play again.
Especially when you have like VDL on, where we want to make sure that we are as best as we can be for each game, and we're not too scared. No, and we are scared of like dropping down for like a week.
The one day,
the
one day of the month that is game day.
Whereas opposed to like say now, which is off season, which is why I'm much more fine with. Okay, I just want to improve my throw. That's it.
Yeah, I think there's also an aspect of trusting the system where you do need to like have a general routine. Like say once a week, you do sort of like just go home, sharpen the knives on everything, right? But then there's this one specific knife that you are trying to work on.
What are you using the knife for?
Killing people.
Why doesn't he be so
Killing
sharp?
people.
Jesus.
That's an extreme example. I was going to say, I thought he was going to say like cooking or something.
No, I think like killing people on Dodgeball.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I was like, I guess I kind of respect the fact that you want to be kind enough that you have a very sharp blade to kill someone so they, it's a smooth cut.
No, sharpening the knife comes from like, or like
Sharpening a knife is a metaphor.
Okay.
Killing someone is the literal.
I was like, Chris is in a kitchen.
Yeah. Like those.
Alright,
the
no,
metaphor
I got
and
it,
the
I got it,
outcome
I got it.
was
No, but
very
it's like going home. It's
similar.
like, isn't it from like an older saying, which is like make sure to sharpen your
Oh
sword?
no, I get the metaphor and I get that part. It's just that when you got to the point where you were
killing people.
When
It linked too closely with sharpening a
when
knife.
I asked you what you're using the knife for, and you said killing people, I was like,
I mean, the knife was a metaphorical.
like killing people.
My throw or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes,
But like,
yes.
it got too close. I was
Yeah, I was
wait,
gonna
is he
say-
actually? What does Chris do on his
He's
spare time?
a serial murderer.
Yeah.
Where were you last night?
This is a true crime podcast now.
It's true, but I really like the idea of what you said. Actually, no, I really like how you were the analogy of pushing up, or like push everything up at one go. What the thing that you mentioned where you were just like sorry.
Double checking. Do you like it because you like the idea of it, or you just like the analogy of it?
Both. Because
Okay.
I like the idea of it because it's just sometimes it's really hard to just like focus on one thing and just like push it all up. But
interesting.
Okay.
when you're playing a lot of games and thinking about it all at the same time, and a lot of things are coming at you, you can just like kind of juggle all of it.
I love the imagery of it. Like in my mind, you're like a seal in like a little pool, right, in the zoo, and there are just like these 6 tubes with like boiling water in it, and you're just a little seal going like dunk, dunk, dunk.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that part of it.
Okay. Chris, do you wanna?
No, you take it. I'm confident you understand what I meant.
Okay, so I guess what I found interesting is that you liked the idea of how what my system ended up doing is trying to raise everything up all at once, which isn't quite what we try to promote. Instead, we try to promote the opposite generally.
Yeah.
Like,
which
To
is,
be fair, if you could just
I mean, yeah,
put your fingers in all tubes and just like
if you can.
that would be amazing.
The reason why we only do one at a time is because we can't do this effectively,
That's true.
but we can do this effectively,
Just having one focus and just like really
and just
pushing
get it so high, it has the ability to like stay relatively high by itself, and you don't have to touch it while you do. everything
it's
else.
kind of like what we talked about last episode, where we were like, oh yeah, let's focus on one throw
Yeah.
instead of like going like.
No, it's exactly that.
That is, it is
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're just having like one skill where we're really good at.
So, how do I got this? It's like we, especially I guess at our level, where pushing up, like what we are not at the peak of dodgeball. I mean, we are not at the peak. Of
We are not. We are not. At the
I
peak
don't-
of
It's an
dodgeball.
I don't think.
exclusive club where you're not invited.
Well, okay.
I know where you're going with
I'm
this.
at the peak,
Yes,
I am
but
at the peak of dodgeball.
but I
I do
don't-
feel sorry for the rest of you, and I'm trying to help.
Okay, no. I would just say, like, yes, I'm kind of at the
peak of
top of the
current dodgeball.
population,
Yes,
but we have not found the peak.
yes,
Yeah.
I know
Yes,
that's where
that's
you're going
true.
with this.
I feel like
But-
dodgeball is so niche as well. Like it's.
That's I mean that's why.
Well, that's why we haven't found it.
That's why because our population is just too low.
Mm.
But anyway,
Fuck, what was I going with this?
yeah, that was completely derailed.
Fuck.
We are not at the peak of dodgeball.
We are not at the peak. We are not at the peak of dodgeball.
I got it. It's like starting the car engine, the old school. Like,
Come on, Ben.
We are not at the peak of dodgeball. So I guess. Fuck, where was I going with this? I have it. I kind of have it. It's like we can't push everything all at once because we don't know, like we don't have, I guess, the base skill to push everything all at once. Is what I'm trying to get at.
I think also though we're at a point, or maybe not me, but for example, like you and Chris, like you're probably at maybe like 70-80% of like your potential, right? And when you get to that point, to push past that point takes so much dedication and hard work and focus that it's not possible for you to find that much time and live a normal life to do that. Whereas like in the beginning, like it's pretty easy to gain 20% across all areas when you're still playing, just by virtue of coming to training and maybe like taking your exercise and stuff more seriously, playing games. But you're at a point now where to really push yourself further, you have to actually focus on
That was what I had in mind, but I said it the other way around in my head.
And it's like someone who's at level 50 is gonna have a much harder time like leveling up than someone who's at level 1.
Basically, like it's
Yeah.
just all about like because I'm pretty sure you guys know about newbie games, right?
Newbie games.
Gains
Games.
in the gym.
Yeah.
games.
when I hatch a Pokemon out of an egg, and I take them to verse 1 Pokemon, and they gain like 20 levels in one.
Well, it's
after
basically
one
the same
time.
thing. Like you just put them under so much strain, the Pokemon too. Like initially that they're not used to
that is like body just adapts.
Mm.
Whereas if you're like Chris and you just tell him to like, oh, go for a run, his body's like, yeah, I can do that.
I can't run.
Man, Chris, what?
Yeah, I was like, Mr. 100 meters.
I won the 100-meter race. Oh yeah,
But I can't run.
I came second in the 400-meter heat.
I came third.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, shit, my
Who
bad.
was first and second?
First was Ben Davies, second was Tim.
Oh yeah, then
They told me it was heats.
It was, I mean, it was supposed to be heats, but
So I was like, well, I was gonna come top 4.
imagine if you came
I
fourth.
leisurely came third in the 400-meter heat.
Then
Wasn't
Cherie,
even
both of us like
trying.
both of us were the only girls on the blue team. We were just like
To be
participating in
fair
everything.
though, I've been training to run faster, so
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
you know.
Would you say like you training and run faster is like a goal, or like a way to achieve a bigger goal, or
Yeah, be a better dodgeball player.
that's true. You gotta have a lot of agility in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's like working on rush speed as well, since I take the rush in my team. But yeah, just generally having more power from the legs. Incorporating my legs into my throw is also somewhere there.
Somewhere very low on the list, I see.
I mean, I need to build the power first, I guess.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah, but moving on. I mean, back to the same topic. We were still going on
With what?
how to achieve goals. Or
I don't think how to set, like, how do you get around to setting your goals?
yeah, how do you?
Yes, my goals? Well, I guess there are a couple of things. So I think what Chris said about like that you want to have this identity that you're working towards is really true for me. So, a couple of years ago, I think whatever the first year of COVID was, maybe 20 something. 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2020. I was like, I want to be a better person. I think I have a lot more care and love that I don't put into the world that's inside. And then I was like, that's who I want to be. And so what everyday habits does that look like? And for me, it was things like showing more gratitude, choosing to be kind. It was like capturing memories, because I felt that I had all these memories that I just never wrote down or took photos of, and I would just forget, which would make me really sad. And I forgot what else. There were these things, and I wrote them down on a post-it note, and I stuck them on my diary, because I look at my diary multiple times every day. I'm like a very handwritey kind of person. Stuck it on my diary, drew a love heart on it, and I would flick through it every day. And I think what it reminded me of is just those phrases, and that's similar to how I work in Dodgeball as well, is that I have phrases that I keep in mind, and then when I get in those moments where I have this moment to make a choice of what I do, hopefully having that phrase like so close to my mind leads me to the choice, that is more reflective of where I want to be. And sometimes you're going to make the right choice, and sometimes you'll make the choice that you didn't want to make. But ideally, you start making more and more of the choice that you want to make to be the person that you want to be. So for me, it's like, okay, I could run upstairs now and just like go into my bed and go to sleep, or I could take a moment, go find my parents, give them a hug, say, hey, I love you, and they'll be like, get off me. And but at least I've taken that moment to do that. And sometimes I'm tired, and whatever reason, I just run into my bed and go to sleep. But hopefully, eventually, more often than not, I will take that moment to stop and say, you know what, I love you. And same thing with my friends. Like, most people know that, like, anyone who messages me on Facebook, like, will get ghosted for a period of like 24 to 48 hours. And for me, it's like making sure that I still find time sometimes to remind people about how much I appreciate their friendship and how much I love and care for them as a person. And I find now that I don't have that post-it note on my diary or anywhere anymore. I just tend to make those choices more often than not, and has really changed my quality of life. And I think people that work with me, like in the management team, will know that they get sappy messages every now and again. And for me, it just at least reminds me. Have you not?
Oh, that's why I've been getting double the message.
Ah.
What? I send messages into the chat all the time, being thank you so much for blah blah blah.
Actually, I really like that. Like, some of the marketing videos I put out.
And you say thank you to Regina. all the
Yeah,
time.
I'm just like, oh, thanks, Cherie. Because no one else, like, replies. They just give me a thumbs up. But, like,
no.
you know. That's Cherie.
But
I'm going to look at this afterwards and hunt you
Fact
down.
check.
I definitely sent.
No, not you.
messages. Oh, you not saying
I-
anything to Regine?
Reckon I've said this looks great many times.
Yeah.
Mm.
But, like...
Well,
But
anyway,
then what?
not saying that you don't do that.
This is good.
No.
You'll be like, oh,
I'm
this
not
is-
getting. No, not even gonna get the gaslight. Yeah, you said I didn't say anything.
I mean,
But
you'll be like, it's up to you. This, I think you have the best choice. Full stop.
I mean, I did a thumbs up.
Yeah, you did thumbs up.
I'm one of them.
Oh.
yeah, for me anyway, it makes me feel more at ease if I like say it out loud. And sometimes I don't remember to say it out loud. And you know, like Ben will do some real great work for the coaching team or whatever, and I won't say anything to him, and I'll take it for granted. But sometimes I say, "Thanks, Ben. Well done." Right?
I think having the
It's okay.
yeah,
all
having
my
the
coaches are
want,
slaves.
yeah, but having the want
Yes.
to try to like be appreciative of others and not take people for granted. There's also a big step as well because like, you know, people do take other people for granted. But like, if you try to be like, oh yeah, this was really good, you make the other person feel a lot better, and you're not doing it for yourself. You're literally doing it for someone else.
Yeah, and you're probably thinking it, and then sometimes it's just taking that extra step
Yeah.
to say something.
It's an extra step. And I really like your thought process in stating like the little phrases, because I used to do that quite a bit where I had like little phrases in my head that I wanted to reflect this person. So when I say when I was younger, but like maybe at the start of this year.
You were indeed younger.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, no, at the start of this year, I had this idea of like, oh, this is the kind of person that I want to be. And I listed out like traits and habits and values that I wanted. I think I had a whole big conversation with my mentor back then about values and values that you want to represent as like a human being, you know?
yeah.
So, and just setting out like mini goals to reflect these values as a person. You know, like how can I achieve, like, how can I become this person? And through that, like setting out like smaller goals, like what you say, being appreciative of others, being like, saying thank you to a barista.
Yeah,
Barista.
it's not barrister.
No, I
Do
had
not
a whole
say-
conversation.
I mean, you can also.
But I hope you don't have a barrister.
No, I had a whole conversation with like I think it was Elon's brother who's a barrister, and I was like, oh yeah, do you make good coffee?
Fuck. Went through uni, got a degree, all to be gasped. Do I make good coffee?
It was the funniest thing because we
He's
went to
like-
the footy.
Yeah, but how did you know?
We went to the footy and we got like Medallion Club tickets, right? So these are like $80 tickets for free, and Elon's brother got it for us, and we were like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, where does your brother work at? And he's like, oh, he's a barrister. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess this coffee place really pays well, huh? Giving like free Medallion Club tickets. That's the first thing that went through my
Crazy
head.
coffee place.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I digress. Back on topic is just for me how I come up with goals is my goals are very close to my values as who I want as a person. But that's also another topic to talk about because values is a huge topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pandora's box right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, talk about how. No, talk about why.
How?
Well,
Well, I think you also still didn't touch on like how did you actually pick?
how to actually pick? Well, what I did was I wrote a list of all the different traits and like things that I would want to have as like an ideal person. Like if I was exactly who I wanted to be, right now, like what would it look like? And it was like, I want to be reliable. I wanted to be respected. Like I made a giant list, and then I said, okay, like how can I group these things into like a smaller goal, or like what are most important to me? So like a big one for me is that I felt in like 2019, 2018, like I was always not at home. I was always like running in and out, and very much just like using my home as a hotel, as my parents would say, and using my parents as taxis and whatever. And it really, and Chris is a taxi, and it really made me feel very unhappy about myself, because as much as I was, doing well in my studies, or Dodgeball was going well, or everything else was going well, like I felt like there was this massive like gaping hole in my life, because I felt like I was taking people in my life for granted. And so I was like, that is a big one. And then I guess along with that, all the things about being kinder or whatever came with that. And then, yeah, it was really just sort of picking from that list, and sort of, I guess next time I'm ready to work on those things about myself, I just go back to that massive list of things that I want to be known as or want to feel about myself, and I pick different ones to work on is what I will probably end up doing.
That's true. Yeah, I think like how we pick goals, or in a way, like I reckon our thinking is like really similar in the sense like having the perfect person in our head, and then like trying to slowly work towards it. But how I come up with goals is also a lot of self-reflection. Like going back on the topic of self-reflection again from the last episode.
Part 1.
I was going to say episode 1, and I was like, oh wait. Yeah, it's a lot of self-reflection and like looking back on like where I can improve and what I have done well, as you said. Like, and this applies both in Dodgeball and also in life, where you're like, oh yeah, I think I did this well today. I feel very present today, and you gotta congratulate yourself for that and like maintain it, but also like see like, oh yeah, which part of my life can I improve? Like maybe I want to improve my family relations, or that sort of thing. So self-reflecting and looking back is how I would probably go about setting up my goals.
My one question to you though is what are you then reflecting on if you haven't set up the goals already?
Current state.
I reckon your current state of mind, your like, I think during the first part, we all mentioned like we had a goal for this year, and for me, like my goals very, very overarching, and it's constant. So it's always constantly in the back of my head.
Well, you're still kind of reflecting based on, it can be still a very big goal, but based on this overarching goal you have. Is it? I guess I'm just kind of trying to clarify your like the order here.
Like the ideal process. Oh no, I'm not ideal. But my process.
Just clarifying your process. I mean, like maybe there is something, and I'd be interested to kind of figure out. But just like, okay, then like, how did you pick your very first goals? And obviously, you never know. But like, if you were to like start something new.
Well, as a person, I have a lot of hobbies. Not a lot of hobbies, but I do have a lot of things that I'm interested in.
Sounds like you have a lot of hobbies. Sorry, continue.
But it's just like stuff that I experience and I like, or that sort of thing. Yeah, I just like realize I like it, and I'm like, oh, I want to get better at it. Like for fishing, for example, I want to catch a snapper. So I go out to like 3 a.m. in the morning and catch nothing. Oh, it's really disappointing.
Yeah, okay, so then how did you pick that goal?
Animal Crossing.
I wish, but this is really bad, but it came from a place of like seeing people on Facebook catching like 80 centimeter like
Oh my
snappers,
God.
and I'm just like, man, I want to be there.
She's like,
That
I
person.
can do that.
Yeah, I can do that, surely. And like after like 20 sessions of like catching nothing at 3 a.m. in the morning, I don't know anymore. But how I actually like thought about it was
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
so I guess like
with other people.
point
and,
point being is that you sort of have to reflect after you've set your goals and you've tried to do something. I guess I'm just trying to, like, yes, a reflection process to cycle through to maybe redefine or just like tweak your goals is important. But I guess
Yeah, I guess like self-reflection is a way for you to tweak or like kind of make your goals more relatable, because everyone can like set up a goal, but whether it's more like personal to you or not, that is something that self-reflection will come in and make it more better. Like what we said in the previous episode about waking up at 6 a.m. in the morning to go to the gym, and for some people it's like what is their measure of success. But so you set up that goal and then you self-reflect and realize that's not for you, and you start tweaking that goal in a sense.
yeah, but so I guess going back to like the starting question is like, how do you
even find out
how do you pick the goals that you should be doing? And I guess reflection is part of it, but
I
like,
don't think that reflection necessarily like has to happen after you've got a goal though. Like it can also be like kind of sprung on you by life things, right? Like a friend can approach you and say, hey, I don't think you're prioritizing our friendship very well, or you might get feedback from work saying like, I don't think you're being very dedicated professional, and then you take the time to self-reflect and then you set a goal.
yeah, so that's kind of where I was sort of, and Regine actually sort of touched on it, but then went somewhere else. But I think kind of basing it on like say values is definitely
Yeah.
a point to start at.
Yeah, where your values
And
are
then
at.
for those sort of things, right? Like you can't really reflect on nothing, I guess. So just like kind of, I'm just trying to find the root
The root of
of
our
it.
goals. It's a very deep question.
But yeah, anyway, I think you both sort of touched on it.
Yeah.
And my idea of it is that it is based on values, and it's sort of back to what I kind of mentioned with the start, is like it's also based on what identity you want to carry with you. So for you literally just pretty much said this, like I've ironed out, like kind of isolated what identity I want,
Who do you want to portray as a person?
and then you go out and pick like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then even for this I need to do this.
I think like that's pretty similar to what I have.
And then there is that feedback loop, which is the reflection.
Yeah, it's just having an idea of like who you want to be. Like what is your measure of success in like 10 years? Like, oh, do I want to be at the top of my career? Do I want to have 5 babies? Like I don't know, man. Like, or like what traits, what kind of habits I want to have, and just like cycling through that.
Yeah.
But I think like when some of my friends come to me and they're like, oh yeah, I don't really know what I want to do with my life, or I do have a couple friends who like come talk and stuff. My first like biggest advice is always like, all right, make a list of what kind of person you want to be. Like it doesn't have to be like who you are now, but it's like what kind of traits you want to portray, what kind of person, what do you want other people to see you as. And it doesn't, like, honestly, who cares about other people as well? Like, who do you want to see yourself as? Yeah, other people don't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. I think one other good place to start is, I think this applies on small and large scale, but you should also have some sort of vision of what you want the future to be, which is what you're doing we're doing it specifically with like traits and personality, identity, whatever. But even like for when we started MUDA or whatever, having kind of that forward vision of like, this is what I see the club is going to be, and we might not know how long that will take, but like, you know, we want to be effectively the best dodgeball club in the world. We want to have lots of different opportunities for our players, both on and off court, and lots and lots of other stuff. And then having all those sort of goals then allows us, having that end vision then lets us set up all these smaller goals to be like, okay, as long as we achieve this, I know that I'm moving towards that.
Yeah, so 2020 vision is having...
No, it's not 2020 vision. I feel
like just having like an idea of what you want it to be.
Yeah, which is not... I guess like you should almost not be able to see the straight, as Cherie kind of mentioned as well. You should not be able to see the straight line from where you are to where you want to be. Because if it's a straight line, then you're probably not aiming high enough.
That's true.
And that's probably a completely different topic to do like motivation and stuff. But like, if from where you are to where you want to be is a straight line and you can clearly see the way, like that's a very good indication that either like you're almost done with the activity, but like, yeah, it's a pretty good indication that you're either not aiming high enough or I don't know, some sort of problem is happening around that. Because like for MUDAs, like we're not just aiming to have casuals bigger. Like some of the visions are pretty big. Like, you know, we want to, I guess one big example is like, you know, be able to pay players to play. And there's no way in hell we know how we're getting there.
That's cool.
But we want to get there. So yeah, like, and then having that, like, maybe if we can, you know, have stipends for the managers, and then
specifically good stipends.
Well,
One day, that's the next step.
well, yeah, that's the next step. But just having our $2 per hour stipends right now is a start in that direction, and then yeah, the next step will be to maybe try to make minimum wage, and then we don't know what's in between, and then we have this thing at the end, which is like, that's where we want to be.
That's true.
And then probably by the time we get close to that, there's going to be even further, like, things we can't even imagine right now.
That's fine, because we won't be here anymore.
Like, we're very like set up like the foundation for like the future generation of MUDA to kind of work on. Hopefully, like in 100 years, MUDA will still be like not working on $2 stipends, and it's going to be like more money.
I think they'll get there, and I think they'll get like way beyond what we could ever imagine. But I think the way it works when you have long-term kind of essentially very wishy-washy goals like that is you just kind of end up taking all these random paths along the way, and then you sort of end up there at the end. And with MUDA, it's very much been like, okay, we like one year we had 1 casuals, next year we had 2, and then we had a VDL team, and then maybe, you know, we're going to run this women's tournament, and like we do all these random things, and in my mind anyway, as long as you're moving forward in that general direction of improving the club, growing the club, and innovating the way we do things, like you'll get there eventually. And that was the same approach that I took to becoming a lawyer. When I started university, I said every year I'm going to do a different legal opportunity. And I didn't really know what they were going to be. I didn't know like what was going to happen. But I knew that if I did that, I'd probably have enough experience to, you know, become a lawyer at the end of it by getting a role or whatever.
Sorry, just as an example, like you did like a marketing at a law firm as well or something.
Oh yeah, I did a whole bunch of
Like-
very loosely related
Yeah,
law things.
just as
Yeah.
like to show it doesn't need to be like
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think with a lot of like jobs out there as well, I have worked at Subway, I have worked at JD Sports, I have been a perfume lady, like a whole bunch of other stuff. And each job that you take up can, you can just get skills from them. Like, or with like being a sales consultant at like a yoga place and also JD, like you start talking to people, you learn people skills, you learn how to set targets and hit those targets. And that could be translated to the work that I do now,
Yeah.
with like finance as well. It's like, oh, your work ethic is just developed through these like random jobs that you find.
Exactly. And I think for almost any career path, like having a broad goal of I'm going to do like one different opportunity every year will really set you up for heading somewhere. Because for me, like having just that broad goal of I want to do something different every year made me take the time to like, okay, every day I'm going to have a look at the job portal. I'm going to have a look what volunteering opportunities are available. And then you know the deadlines, you know, like, okay, if I want to apply next year, like when do I need to start looking? And you already have that information. And just by taking those steps, like you're setting yourself up to get that one opportunity each year. And they probably will end up turning into more than just, you know, those 5 opportunities each year. You'll probably branch out and take a whole bunch of random different things.
I think you mentioned this in your one of the Dodgeball workshops. You had a workshop about career, and I left the workshop with like that whole mentality of like, oh, I'm gonna do one opportunity each year, even though I was in my second year and I have 3 years of uni, but doesn't matter. But I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try out to do a lot of different leadership opportunities, or like just things that I seem interested in, so just like laying there like a potato. So for this year, I did like NRC. I also did some mentoring. I took up like 2 internships at the same time. Do not recommend. I did not get a lot of sleep. Yeah, and then I also
video marketing.
Oh, video marketing. I took that up too.
Crazy grind.
Yeah. Oh.
I respect that.
Yeah. So it's quite a bit, but like I don't regret taking up any of these opportunities, because I thought like this is beneficial to like me then, because I was having fun as I was doing it, but also me in the future. And you're just getting skills to do stuff that you want to do in the future.
And there's so many paths your life can take, but you're like, your path is never going to deviate unless you like knock on the doors and see if they'll open. And I think the most important thing that people can do is just go around like knocking on as many doors as possible, and that means applying for things like running for committee, trying out for the odds team. It doesn't mean you have to knock on every single door that exists out there, but anything that you think, hey, if this worked out, it'd be pretty cool. Just knock on all the doors, and the right ones that are meant to be will open, and sometimes they'll slam in your face. Sometimes you open one door and you don't progress any further, but sometimes you open one door and it just keeps on opening for you, and that's the new path that your life takes.
And then you really start to learn who you are as a person as well, because you're trying so many different things, and you're like, oh yeah, I did that one thing before but I didn't like it, and then I did this one thing, I'm just like, I really like that. And it goes through with like your values as well, because there's so many values out there, but I think having 3 that most resonates with you and is most applicable can really help like define your goal, in both like in life and also like small goals as well, because you're like, these 3 values that really resonates with me. I don't know, for me, I have like the top 3 values that really resonates with me, so I just always try to reflect whenever I'm making a new goal, or like whenever I'm taking up a new hobby, or like whatever, it must kind of coincide with that whole situation going on, and that fulfills you as a person.
Yeah, it's so good that you have those, because like you're gonna have to make so many tough choices in life, and there are so many opportunities that are, you know, really trade-offs. Like you you're going back to Singapore, but like lots of people you can move states, you can move countries, and it might mean that you don't play dodgeball anymore, you lose your friends. But if you have those core values, then you find it easier to navigate those decisions, I think.
That's true.
So it's really good that you've reflected and you've got those values, or
thank
the values you have right now by your side.
Yeah, it's just like, I think with the biggest thing, like with moving and stuff, it's just like probably the relationships that I've built. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna lose everything. But then you start to realize, like, because of the values that I made, I feel like I have made forever friends. Like, so, to these people that I have made friends with, like, I can come, like, talk to them in like 10 years and everything will be back to normal. So yeah, that's about me though. But I digress. We have went on a tangent. And, I was somewhat similar to goal setting, but yeah, very
I think
personal
you
relationship.
need a separate careers episode with yours truly.
You
It's gonna
just
apply to
go at it.
anything though. Like, you might say, like, I want to be a better parent in the future, and then each year you do a different, like, you learn to cook one year, and then you learn to garden.
I hope you
one
learn to
year.
cook in like the first.
Just 1 year, you
Cook
just dedicate
nice
to
meals,
cook.
like meals that you enjoy when you sit down.
Not
okay.
instant noodles, no more.
Yeah, not instant noodles. Like, it applies to anything more wishy-washy, whereas I guess dodgeball can be pretty like boom, boom, boom. But for everything else in life, I think having like flexi goals.
Yeah, flexi goals.
Flexi goals that just push you to like knock on doors, I think, is all you need to achieve most things.
Yeah.
So that when you find out where you're at, I was like, oh yeah, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this.
But I mean, and actually, I mean that is essentially you're saying that this system works for those things.
For what things?
Your wishy-washy things. You.
Yeah,
Well, I
flexi
think
goals.
so, because maybe it's because of the way that my worldview, but my worldview is that everything will always work itself out, but you, like, it's a lot easier if you help it along the way. Like, you could, no matter what you do, you can become a lawyer. Whether or not you're stressed and broke and, like, just having a horrible time along the way is up to, like, how you go about it. So you can make it a lot easier by like knocking on as many doors as possible. Like, if you're like me, super like awkward, like forcing yourself to go to some of those like networking events and building some of those basic networking skills will make it a lot easier. So I think for the wishy-washy goals, if you just push yourself to knock on doors and do something, it'll probably all work out in the end. And I mean, as a parent, you probably end up being an okay parent, but it will make it easier if you learn how to
Change diapers.
change the diapers. I don't know, like cook a really good meal, or how to garden or
Yeah.
something.
Having little stars, collating skills that will make your life a little bit easier. Yeah, so I think we kind of touched on it as well, having flexi goals, but what I think, well, we talked about how you go about choosing these goals, but also what kind of goals can you make, or like what kind of goals, we did talk about this as well, kind of more of a system.
Yes, yeah. What are we up to talking about now?
We were on how to set goals and how to achieve goals.
And we talked about that, right?
Yeah, I reckon we did hit the topic. Like, in the end, to sum it all up in one sentence, is like my like how I make goals is based on my values. Full stop. But then different people is just different.
But then how do you make your? Do you have any dodgeball goals?
Dodgeball goals? Yeah, I do have quite a couple.
Name one.
Like everyone else, I want to throw better, which is a very, very broad.
Yeah. So do you have anything
I just want to throw better.
more specific?
So.
Okay, and well, actually, yeah. I mean, the next part was like, yeah. Let's try set up some goals. So maybe I can workshop this with you.
Okay.
So yeah, you want to throw better?
So for me personally, I want to throw better, and I feel like my throw has been slightly improving over time, which is very good. But also not at the rate that I want to, which is like slightly disappointing as well. But you know, we are getting there. And well, from like our conversation before, like it shouldn't be like, oh, I want to go at like this miles per second, or I don't. Like it shouldn't be like a speed, but more of like a system, was it? So like, what am I going to do to make me throw better?
Yeah. What goals are you gonna set?
Well, I do the like low motion quite a bit. I do it everywhere that I go. I'm not too sure whether it's a goal or not, but maybe like actually going out and practicing it, because I do this randomly, like when I'm walking on the street as well, like just to be sure of like the whole like pronate, elbow drive, release, recovery.
And to scare off anyone that might be thinking of approaching you by just doing this when they approach them.
Yes, but okay. So like, say over next year, and obviously you're going back, but
I'm going to ask Linton, since he's in Singapore.
yeah, and they do have a league. There.
I reckon they do have like a
maybe not a
Singapore
league.
dodgeball. I've been like sussing them out.
They do, I think.
They definitely have
Yeah.
dodgeball there.
I've been sussing them out. I'm just like, oh, okay, they look good. But they play outside though. Yeah, I was talking to Nico about it. Apparently they play on grass, like fake grass.
Like I think tennis grass,
Yeah.
sort of turf, sort of thing.
Yeah, like kind of like Thursday League. Yeah, but
Yes, turf. Yeah. So
But from-
outdoor turf. So it's slightly different. It'll be like more mat. Anyway. So anyway, so say your goal is you want to improve your throw. Sort of. What more could you do? Like that goal is great, but that goal is, how long do you reckon it's going to take you?
well, hopefully 1.5 years, and then I'm going to come back to Melbourne to MUDA, and
Sure.
I'm going to be like, whoa, insane, mind blowing. Yeah.
Okay, so are you satisfied with saying in 1.5 years my throw is going to be better? Is that your goal?
Yes, but it's very scary because I'm putting a definite time on it.
That is not my issue with it. Although, that is, yeah, sure. Like, as I said, I do think you need like some like kind of checkpoints to be like, am I? It's essentially kind of like, am I doing enough? Because the system is kind of like it will work, but the kind of speed at which it works is more like how much effort you're putting in to a certain degree, or also like, if you're doing it properly, is also another very big aspect, because you can like bang a wall with like a rubber mallet as much as you want. It's gonna be a very slow break, like if you're trying to knock it down. But anyway, so you're trying to improve your throw. Do you reckon that's the goal? The only thing you should do in terms of goal setting? Say,
well, like it could be like, I want to be a better dodgeball player. And
okay, we're going the other way, but sure.
The 3 pillars of better throw, better dodging, better catching.
Interesting that those are your pillars, but that's definitely the digression.
Let's just talk for another time.
Yeah.
What's wrong with my pillars?
Yeah,
We got too much into this. It's a whole.
we can bring Ben back for that one. So Cherie back for career and general like kind of lifestyling. Ben back for more dodgeball
Strategies.
overview.
Yeah.
But yeah,
going
you
back to-
okay? So okay,
Yes.
you're talking about becoming a better dodgeball player. Let's
Yes.
just go through this whole
I'm
process.
just gonna go back to.
How long do you reckon that will take?
Indefinite, because I feel like after a year of trying to be there, I still feel like I'm not a better dodgeball player.
Sure. So that's an indefinite goal.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm fine with that answer. So we've got improving my throw, becoming a better dodgeball player.
Mm-hmm.
Are these the two goals you're setting for yourself?
Sounds pretty good.
Sounds pretty good.
I
Okay.
like those goals.
Okay, so if with these goals, if I see you in 1.5 years when you come back,
Mm-hmm.
is your throw gonna be better?
Wow. Hopefully, yes.
Okay, so what can we do to make you say most likely, or even definitely?
I feel like you guys can't do anything. It's more of a me thing because I have to trust myself.
No,
And
no, but what?
having like if I say most likely, I'm giving myself the accountability of like doing, like, going out to get those goals.
So-
Yeah.
You say you have to like you trust yourself to do what?
To actually put in the effort.
Okay. Here's
Like,
a different way that
responsibility.
to frame it that maybe you might, it might click.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a child
Mm-hmm.
who you were trying to train up,
Yes.
and you gave them that goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they're gonna go?
I'm not going to do it because it's my goal for them.
No, but like they also want to get better.
Oh, okay. Mm,
So it's like, oh, you sit down the child. Okay, your goal
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
have
So
a better
you
throw.
sit down and you just be like, okay, your goals. Okay, obviously they need to be interested. So their goal is that big one. I want to be a better dodgeball player, and you just sit them down and you say, okay, I'm gonna set one goal for you. It's going to be your throw needs to be better in 1.5 years.
mm-hmm.
So what's gonna happen?
Well, that child is gonna go, like, make a plan on how he's gonna do it. So, like, I don't know, build muscle strength, go to the gym, practice,
Okay, you're
Yeah.
getting closer. So
warmer, cooler, warmer.
so yeah, you're talking more about like because I guess the whole point of this whole conversation was like the goal setting isn't simply about that final result of in 1.5 years I'm going to be a better thrower.
Yeah, that's why I say it was indefinite because, like, I feel like in the future, even if I have a better throw, like, I'm still going to think my throw isn't good enough. But I want to constantly work on, like, getting at it.
Okay, Ben, you gonna help her?
I'm sorry.
No.
Maybe my
No,
brain just works
Hang on,
differently.
I do want to try to get you to say it. I don't know if you
You're
could
trying really.
like
I don't know. I tried with the child thing, but
Support?
no,
like
it's
if
like
you just told a child to get better over 1.5 years,
Yeah.
when you see them again in 1.5 years, do you think they're going to be better?
Here's another way to put it. Okay, Chris is coaching you personally one-on-one, and
Scary.
all he says to you to get better is, Georgine, you have to get a better throw. That's all the instruction I'm
Get
giving
good.
you. That's it. Would you be satisfied?
Nah, not really.
Why?
Because it's very vague.
Okay. So what do you reckon I should tell you?
Regine, you should practice your dodgeball or like your throw maybe like 3 times a week and work on it for 20 minutes a
Ben,
day.
you're a genius.
I'm so good. Oh my
This is
god.
my Ben to coach.
This is why we pay you $2 an hour. Quality coaching.
Do you understand what we're getting at?
Yeah, have a process.
Yeah. So getting
So okay, let's go back to it. So
Okay.
what goals are you setting for yourself now?
I am gonna practice my throw at least 3 times a week for 20 minutes a session.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Well,
It's internal.
So many
was it
bodily
you? I
sounds.
thought it
coming
was
from
like
the
door
cat.
opening or something. Yeah, I was just like, oh man, that's so
I
good.
hope the mic picks that up.
Yeah, Chris is very hungry, unfortunately. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you moved that onto there, I almost cracked.
I ate all my cookies. Where did they go? Why do I have another one?
Have a cookie. Alright. But so, I think like playing socials as well. Like maybe playing socials like twice a week. And actively thinking about how my throw is on court.
Disclaimer: do not think about your throw in a game.
Okay. Do not.
This is completely off topic, but
Yeah.
for anyone listening, do not think about your throw in a game.
Well,
You get fucked.
but like,
In two
yeah, fair
senses.
enough. Unless it's like a 1v whatever situation, you have 6 balls.
So in saying this, it does not mean do not think about where you're throwing
Mm-hmm.
or like how hard. Do not think about the technique. So like obviously we're like trying to get through a very specific technique,
Mm-hmm.
or at least general technique, I guess. But if your body doesn't naturally do it yet, you shouldn't try to force your body to do it, especially when you know you're pumped up with adrenaline at that point.
That's how you break arms.
That is exactly how you break arms. Yeah, and like I tried to give this big disclaimer the whole year, but we still unfortunately had casualties. So it's really important. Do not try to adjust your technique during a game. It should just be that you've practiced it off court so much that when you do come on, it just happens. Like, Yeah.
Fair enough.
don't think about it during the game.
Right.
Anyway, I think
Yes.
we kind of got
Off tangent.
not even off topic. We're missing. I feel like we're missing the mark a bit because I feel like going to social league does not necessarily help you in your throwing.
Well,
It is a way for you to get your reps up, but in comparison to say if you were just dry throwing, the amount and I guess the efficiency of what you would get out of throwing is different.
Like, how many times do you reckon you throw a ball during a game?
not a lot. Because, depends. Mixed teams? Yeah.
Give a number.
Roughly.
I don't know.
Or even Cherie, you could probably help us since
8. I don't know.
I don't know.
To pay
actually.
10 points, I throw 1 every point except for 2 where I died very early doing something stupid. 8.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe plus 2 for the ones where I'm left by myself at the end and I get to throw an extra ball. 10
10.
times.
Fair enough. Makes sense.
like maybe.
Yeah, around like 20 probably.
Okay.
I think 20 is a good number.
Now, even let's say you spent 10 minutes throwing, how many times do you reckon you're going to be able to throw?
Like a lot.
Even if you do like 2 a minute, that's already 20.
Yeah, that's true.
2 throws every minute.
Yeah.
Just really wind up for 59 seconds.
Ben? 2 a minute.
2 a minute? Oh, 2 a minute. Oh, I thought it was like... What did I think?
One a minute?
1 a minute. I thought 2 every 2 minutes. Oh, don't worry. I'm so out of it right now.
Yeah, it's the late nights kind of vibe.
Anyway, I think even just the going out for a throw 3 times a week is really good.
I want to make like realistic and also like achievable goals. So,
Yeah. Which is, I think, something.
if I put too much on my plate, I get overwhelmed and then I go to my bed and I curl up and die. Yeah, because I get too overwhelmed.
Yeah, which is something I think. We can sort of close on. Which is, have you heard of like smarter goals?
I briefly read up on it, but
Is that
not
like an
too
acronym?
much.
I don't know what it stands for.
Do you remember what SMART stands for? They added an E and R. Okay,
Enthusiastic,
smart is
Specific,
S. Yep.
measurable.
attainable. I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, what's that?
Achievable, I think.
Achievable. Oh, that's cool. Reasonable.
Results-based
Oh,
or something? I don't know.
No, that's measurable, right?
Oh.
reasonable.
Do you want to do T first?
Yeah, who has handy dandy Google at their
Well,
disposal?
so smarter then.
Smarter
Smarter
goals.
Yeah, they updated it recently. I saw.
Wait, what's S again? I forgot already.
Specific.
Specific, measurable. Is A achievable or accountability?
Specific,
Accountability is
measurable,
on you.
action orientated, realistic,
Not action.
timed,
Or
evaluated,
realistic.
and reviewed.
Timed.
Reasonable is like.
Oh, but there's also one where the A is attainable,
What was A in that one?
and there's one where the A is achievable.
What's A in this one?
There's action orientated, attainable, or achievable. And then for the E, there's evaluative, exciting, or educational.
Okay, obviously there's like.
There are
Exciting.
I think the main ones.
a lot of different.
The main ones are
Specific.
The research is unclear.
specific. Even
Specific is always S, right?
Yeah,
Specific.
specific.
that
okay.
important.
Measurable.
Oh, I thought it meant like this,
achievable.
Yeah,
like
specific is
going by
important.
smart. What are the ones like you'd probably have as each letter? That's what you're talking about.
No. Specific is mostly important, except for your overarching goals.
One of them has the S as smart.
Okay, so specific. Measurable
Mm-hmm.
is important. What's it? Achievable is not. Oh, it made a noise for us this time. Okay, well, that's definitely a good indicator that we should be closing up.
Yeah, we should be close.
But achievable,
Well, there's achievable, action orientated,
achievable and reasonable are the same.
Same thing.
I think maybe action orientated.
Action
When
orientated.
you have control of the outcome.
Yeah.
Well, action oriented.
It means you're doing something towards.
Yeah.
It means that it's more about the system. That's literally about like
It's
more.
not Chris will love me more. It's I will show Chris more love.
I think I'll make Chris love me more.
Oh my god.
Reasonable is important for short ones. I mean,
Well,
to a certain extent, even the long ones. But like,
long ones.
I'm kind of, I guess, just being a bit cautious to say that you should also still be pushing yourself.
I
But-
mean,
Like, reasonable does mean like still pushing yourself, not like
Yeah.
reasonable. I can do it today.
No.
I think
Yeah.
reasonable is important in the context of dodgeball because we're so lucky to be playing with people who are at the very top of the sport and seeing them all the time. To not, I guess, push yourself to immediately be where they are.
Yes.
Because, I mean, like, you could rock up to Monash casuals and be like, damn, Chris throws well. My goal is now to throw like Chris or throw as fast as Chris. And it's going to take you, like, a couple of steps. So it should be realistic. You know, you should stop it like, I should throw as fast as Cherie. And then, 2 weeks later, it's probably there.
And
Slowly
timed
build
is
up.
also a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, essentially, you want to throw better.
Throw better, make smarter goals, smart goals.
I mean, yeah, people can look it up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
you want to throw better. What are your goals?
so it is going out of my way to practice throwing at least for like 20 minutes, like for 3 times a week. So that is, I reckon that's pretty reasonable. What?
Sorry.
It's not you, it's me.
Oh, okay. Oh, no. Okay, I reckon that's
Thanks.
pretty
Sounds like
reasonable,
Lucy.
achievable. It's pretty specific as well because I'm like stating the time, like the amount of time, and like the number of times I want to go. Measurable? Yes.
It is measurable.
Yes. Yes.
Are you doing your
measurable?
time?
Is just did you do it or did you not?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if your goal was like, I want to be a better player.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you say you are?
That's true. What do you mean?
So measurable, yes or no? Are you a better player? you can't really say yes, you can't really say no.
Yeah,
right?
you can't.
So therefore, it's not measurable.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas yours, I'm gonna go throwing. Yes, I threw. No, I did not throw.
Fair enough.
Measurable.
Measurable. What else is there on the list, Rory?
Timed.
Time.
Yeah, it all fits.
Yeah.
And then, well, so then there's also the bit afterwards where you're going to need to reflect. Be like, how's it going? Is my throw getting better? Does this, like, if it's not, especially, like, does this mean I should change something? Do I need to get, it reviewed by a coach, for example, which I think is where a lot of people are at the moment. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today to the podcast about goal setting. We have
Coming.
Oh.
Yes.
yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, thanks Regine for coming.
But so in this whole entire podcast, we talk about why we make goals, how we make goals, and also like an example using me about what kind of goals we can make, and make specific goals. So I think like it's a really good episode. I reckon like anyone listening would have like a really good guide on how.
I don't know. At this point, I don't know. But I guess on that front, if anyone wants to chat, I think most of us, I guess especially the coaching team, but even Regine, maybe Cherie, would be happy to chat.
Yeah, I'll definitely be down to chat. Like, probably will have trouble like with goal setting. Well, after this whole episode, I shouldn't have.
You're an expert now.
Yeah, I'm an expert. We have goals on the systems and processes. But yeah, I want to thank all of you guys for joining me in this episode.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Regine.